In 2021, the world stood on its balconies and applauded them. Nurses, drivers, grocery clerks. We called them essential. And then everyone went back to paying them like they weren't. Right now, a firefighter earns about $26 an hour to run into burning buildings. A 26-year-old moving numbers on a screen can earn 10 times that. To sit down. That's not a glitch. That's not corruption. That's the system working exactly as designed. The uncomfortable part. Nobody designed it. So who decides what your hour is actually worth? Not your boss, not the government, not some committee of men in a smoke-filled room. The answer took economists over 100 years to figure out. And it starts, strangely enough, with a question about water. In 1776, Adam Smith, the godfather of economics, published the most influential economics book ever written. And buried inside it was a problem he couldn't solve. He could explain trade. He could explain markets. He could not explain this. Water keeps you alive. It costs almost nothing. A diamond does nothing. It costs a fortune. If pay followed usefulness, the water carrier should be rich, and the diamond dealer should be broke. Smith called it the paradox of value. Then he did what geniuses do when they're stuck. He changed the subject. For the next 100 years, the smartest people alive kept getting this wrong, and their wrong answers shaped the world. The most famous attempt said, "Value comes from labor. A thing is worth the hours of work poured into it." Karl Marx built an entire revolution on that idea. It sounds fair. It feels fair. It's also provably wrong. Dig a hole and fill it back in. 12 hours of honest labor, zero value. Spend a decade hand-carving a statue nobody wants. The market shrugs. Effort alone has never paid a single wage. So the question just sat there, unsolved, for a century, until 3 men in 3 different countries in the same decade cracked it almost simultaneously, without ever meeting. An Austrian, an Englishman, and a Frenchman. Karl Menger, William Jevons, Léon Walras. 3 countries, 3 languages, 1 identical breakthrough. Economists call it the marginal revolution. And here's the trick. Value isn't about the total. It's about the next one. Your first glass of water in the desert is worth everything you own. Your 10th glass is nice. Your 100th glass? You're watering plants with it. Same water. Wildly different value, because value lives at the margin, the next unit, not the whole. Diamonds are useless but scarce, so the next diamond is precious. Water is essential but everywhere, so the next liter is free. Smith's paradox, solved, after 95 years. Now, hold that thought and apply it to you, because here's what nobody tells you at your first job interview. Your employer isn't paying for your effort, your loyalty, or how much your work matters to society. They're paying the price of the next person in line who could do your job. That's it. That's the whole secret. If 1,000 people can replace you by Monday, your wage sinks toward what the cheapest qualified one of them will accept. If almost nobody can, the number climbs and keeps climbing until someone qualified finally says yes. You are not paid what you're worth. You are paid what you'd cost to replace. That one sentence explains almost every unfair salary you've ever seen. The beloved nurse and the invisible banker, the teacher and the ad executive. It's not about importance. It was never about importance. Now the sharp ones among you just spotted a problem. Hospitals cry about nursing shortages every single year. Shortage means scarcity. Scarcity should mean rising wages. So where's the money? Here's the dirty footnote. The queue only works when there are many buyers. In most towns, there's one big hospital system, one buyer. When a single employer dominates, they become the queue. Take our number or drive 2 hours to the next city. Economists call it monopsony. Workers call it Tuesday. Remember that asymmetry. It's the fine print under everything that follows. Which brings us to the cruelest rule in all of economics. Loving your job makes it pay less. Think about the jobs people dream about as kids. Teacher, artist, musician, zookeeper, game designer. Millions of people want those jobs. They'd take them at almost any wage. Some will literally work for free just to be in the room. And that's exactly the problem. The line of willing replacements stretches around the block. Economists have a name for this: compensating differentials. Jobs that are pleasant pay less because they're pleasant. Jobs that are miserable, dangerous, or disgusting have to bribe people to show up. An underwater welder can out-earn a university professor. A garbage collector in New York City, with overtime, can out-earn the average American architect. Crab fishermen earn a year's wage in a few brutal months because the job might actually kill them. The market doesn't reward passion. The market charges you for it. Every drop of meaning, every ounce of fun, every "at least I love what I do," the queue behind you gets longer, and the number on your paycheck gets smaller. Your salary isn't a score for how good or noble your work is. It's a measurement of how hard you are to replace, minus how much you do it anyway. But if scarcity sets the price, then somewhere, at some point, somebody was going to figure out the obvious cheat code. You don't have to be scarce. You can manufacture scarcity. Medieval Europe invented the template, the guild. Want to be a baker in 1400s Germany? You couldn't just bake. You needed 7 years as an apprentice, then years more as a journeyman, then a masterpiece, literally a masterpiece, judged by the guild, plus fees paid directly to the very bakers you were about to compete with. Guild said this protected quality. It also, very conveniently, protected prices. Fewer bakers, pricier bread, richer guild masters. The fence kept amateurs out and kept wages in. Sound medieval? Look around. In 1910, a schoolteacher named Abraham Flexner wrote a report on America's medical schools. His verdict: most were terrible. Within 2 decades, nearly half of them were gone, shut down. Medical training got better. That part's real. But fewer schools also meant fewer doctors. On purpose. Fewer doctors meant the next available doctor got very, very expensive. American doctors today are the highest paid on earth, and the trail leads straight back to that report. Scarcity wasn't discovered, it was built, and the fences kept multiplying. In 1950s America, about 1 in 20 jobs required a government license. Today, roughly 1 in 5. Hair braiders need licenses, interior decorators, auctioneers, in some states, fortune tellers, licensed, or take New York's taxi medallion, a piece of metal that once sold for over $1 million. Not a car, not a skill, just permission. Because someone capped the number of permissions. And here's the tell that it's about wages, not safety. The fences are always tallest where the pay is best. In most of Europe, it takes fewer years to become a doctor than in America. Are European doctors worse? Their patients live longer. The extra years aren't extra safety, they're extra fence. Some fences genuinely protect you. Nobody wants a freelance surgeon, but every fence does 2 things at once. It keeps bad workers out, and it keeps wages in. The trick is that both halves happen whether you intend them or not. For most of history, that was the entire game. Be scarce or build a fence. Then, in a single generation, the internet broke the game board. In 1981, an economist named Sherwin Rosen noticed something strange happening to wages at the very top of every profession. Rewind a century. Every town needed its own singer, its own teacher, its own accountant, its own storyteller. Talent couldn't travel, so being the best in your town was enough to make a living. Thousands of local champions, each doing fine. Then came records, then radio, then television, then the internet. Suddenly, the best singer on earth could reach every ear on earth at zero extra cost per listener. And a terrible question appeared: why listen to the 10th best anything when the number one best is one tap away for the same price? Rosen called it the economics of superstars. The top sliver of every field started capturing almost everything. Second place became a rounding error. Here's the brutal math of the modern economy. The difference in skill between number 1 and number 10 in a field might be 2%. The difference in pay can be 10,000%. Not because the market is stupid, because when talent can be copied, streamed, and shipped worldwide, we all end up buying from the same tiny handful of winners. Winner takes most. Everyone else splits the leftovers. It's why a handful of authors sell half the books. Why one footballer earns more than his entire home league combined. Why the app you're watching this on made a few people richer than most countries. And yes, it applies to creators too. The top 3% of YouTube channels collect the overwhelming majority of all views. The median channel earns roughly nothing. Every marketplace the internet touches grows the same shape: a giant spike and a very long, very flat tail. The superstar machine doesn't care what field you're in. It only asks one question: can your work be copied at zero cost? If yes, winner takes most. If no, congratulations, you're a plumber, and the machine can't touch you. There's a reason the trades quietly got attractive again. And that's the world your wage lives in now. A 100-year-old paradox, solved at the margin, gamed by fence builders, and supercharged by scale. So what do you actually do with all this? You can't opt out of the game, but once you see the board, you can stop playing it blind. 4 rules. Rule 1. Your wage tracks replaceability, not effort. Working harder at a common skill mostly just makes you tired. Working toward a rarer one moves the actual number. Overtime is addition. Scarcity is multiplication. Rule 2. Rare doesn't mean superhuman. The easiest scarcity to build is a combination. Plenty of people can code. Plenty of people can explain things clearly. The person who can do both just left 90% of the queue behind. Stack a third skill and the queue is nearly empty. You don't need to be world-class at one thing. Top 20% at 2 or 3 is its own fence. Rule 2.5, because this one's free. The queue works in both directions. Your employer is bidding against every other employer who could hire you. The single strongest wage move ever measured isn't a certification, isn't a degree, isn't loyalty. It's a competing offer. People who switch jobs consistently out-earn people who stay put, because staying put tells the buyer there's no other bidder in the room. Rule 3. Fences are real that stand on the right side of one. A license, a certification, a protected specialty. They're not romantic. They're not fair. They work. That's why they've been working for 600 years. And a union, whatever you think of them, is just this same move played as a team. One fence, built collectively. And Rule 4, the quiet one. The passion tax is only a trap if you don't know you're paying it. Some things are worth being paid less for. Teaching might be one. Art might be one. This channel might be one. Just make sure that's a choice you made with open eyes, not one the queue made for you. So, who decides what you're worth? No one. And everyone. Every person willing to do your job for less casts a silent vote. Every skill you stack that they can't match cancels one. Your paycheck was never a verdict on your value as a human being. It's just a price tag on a queue. And unlike the work week, the hours, and the rules we've covered before, this is the one number you can actually move. 4 billion people never ask who made the rules. You just did. Again, watch for the silent one.